Hey everybody, Jillian here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to jump into the Word Nerd devotional kit from Illustrated Faith, and I'm super excited. So I have here my tray. I like to keep all of my kit elements that I plan to reach for in my tray so that I can just pick it up and move it around when I'm ready to work on it. So I've got the kit in here, and today I'm going to be using some acrylic paints. I went to my shelf where I keep my Target handmade modern acrylic paints with this little die cut piece and matched as best I could with what I had the colors to use with this kit. So as you can see, I've got my gel plate here. I'm so obsessed with using this thing lately. It's so fun to play around with and experiment with. So I'm going to go ahead and use a couple of blues and a pink, and then I'll grab my traveler's notebook, my kit pieces. Well, I'll do that in a minute. And I'm going to create a page in my traveler's notebook. So I have one in here that I'm using. I just started it. I get a lot of questions about where to find blank inserts. This one is from Illustrated Faith, but they run out really fast in the shop, not surprisingly. I'll link my second favorite resource for blank traveler's notebooks down in the video description below if you guys want to check that out. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab my, oh, it's already out, my Word Nerd notebook here. So I did the first word, meditate, and so you can see here I did it in pencil. There was a lot of erasing for this one. I am going to be journaling Psalm 1, 1 and 2, maybe even through verse 5. And yeah, I just took all my notes here and kind of worked through the word here, and then I'm going to kind of transfer some of my notes, the big ideas or the big takeaways, into my traveler's notebook here. I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple Bible mats to protect the pages on either side of this, since it's a relatively new notebook. Got my Brad here to contend with from my previous page using Shauna Klingerman's printables. I shared this entry on an Illustrated Faith process video, so on that channel you can see how this came together if you're interested. And then let's see, this mat is so pretty. It's one of my favorites. I love all of the paint colors on there. Alright, so my plan for this spread, just like one of my more recent videos, is to create just a really fun painterly type background using my gel plate and some acrylic paint here. So I'll go ahead and start off just by mixing some paints. For these bottles of paint that don't have like a squeezer or whatever, I like to just use these silicone media tools from Dina Wakley to like scoop it out and put it on my plate. Or you could tap it out. I'm going to hold off on the pink. The one thing I don't love about the Target paints is sometimes they just get solid. Like this one is kind of goopy. Alright, we'll see if that's enough. And then I'll use this Cornflower. Alright, so on to my voiceover because I just stopped narrating my process as I was working. So I'm putting two different colors of blue on my plate, and then I'm going to use my brayer to mix them. The Oxford blue from Target was super dried out, so didn't work really good, but good enough. I'm going to use, like I said, the technique that I used in one of my recent videos where I just put a layer of paint down on the brayer and then I put like a stamp on there to remove some of the paint from the brayer. In this case, I'm using a stamp that I carved by hand, and I didn't carve deep enough into it for this project at least because I can see all of those little like squiggly lines from, you know, the linoleum that are surrounding the carved pieces. But I kind of like that look. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this guy up and try and like wield him to where I want him to go. And so I'm going to need about 4 impressions to totally fill up this spread. I didn't get a great print from this, and that's totally okay. I'm going to be creating on top of this base layer, but really wanted to get the color and the pattern down in the background. I'm going to call that good enough, and then just to go ahead and put another layer of paint down. I'm going to skip a lot of Oxford blue for this one and just use like a lighter blue and see if I get a better result. So far it's looking better. The blend is a little better. We'll see how it goes. So again, using those hand-carved stamps to pick up some of the paint. And then I'll go ahead and apply it to my notebook spread. I was able to get away using the bottom half, so I'll just flip this over and use the other side. I kind of like the intersecting lines. It looks interesting to me. And then the color variation is just really pretty here. So I'm going to use just the Cornflower blue for the last attempt. And that just goes on so smooth. I use the Target paints because I like the opacity, but I may switch them up if they're just going to keep drying out on me after like 1 or 2 uses. I had a bunch of paint left over on my plate, so I'm going to press that down in a few more places. Then I thought it would be cool to use that hand-carved stamp as a stamp, and so I put a thin plate, or a thin layer of this cherry blossom pink paint on my plate. Good grief, say that 5 times fast. But it wasn't really getting the impression I wanted. It was super faint, so I added a little bit more paint to the plate, and I'm just going to roll that out and see if I can get a better impression. I also want to reiterate, this is like not really a tutorial. I'm still trying to figure out what works best. I'm grateful that you guys in the comments point me to the pros who share their talents with us, and then also that you guys share tips from your own personal experience. That's super helpful too. I really like the contrast of this light pink on top of these blues, so I'm going to stamp this around a little bit. And then that makes a really nice print there on my plate, so I'm going to go ahead and take my scrap paper and just pick that paint up. Kind of cool. Alright, so while that was drying, I decided to go ahead and put some of the die cut pieces down from the Word Nerd stamp set. I figured you guys wouldn't want to watch me push paper around to figure out where I wanted things. And then one of the prompts in this session asks, what does this teach me about God? So I took an index card over to my typewriter and typed up that question, and then I'll go ahead and answer it with some other ephemera pieces from the kit. I love this girl Bailey and thought that she would be a great addition for today's spread, so I'm just going to layer her up in the top left with the word that I'm focusing on and then a little journaling spot. I love the die cut pieces and the labels. I have used so many already, and this is only the first spread, you'll see at the end of the video, that I'm really glad that I had the digitals also that I can print as many times as I want for my own personal use, and I can just keep replenishing like this stash of ephemera pieces. So I'm just using my Illustrated Faith tape runner to get each one of these pieces down. And then I had these red alphabet stickers from Studio Calico. They're a bit older, but the red was just a great match for the red in the kit. If I can find them, I'll link them below. But I'm spelling out the Hebrew word Hagah, that means meditate. So like I mentioned, I'm journaling Psalm 1, 1 and 2, which says, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night." So I learned when doing this word study that that word Hagah means literally to murmur in a low voice or to recite at a barely audible level. So I'm noting that definition here on this little die cut piece. And then I wanted to actually get my verse on the page. So I'm going to use this pink label. Like I said, I just love the way that it pops off of this blue. And in there I'm going to jot down Psalm 1, 1 and 2. This piece that I'm moving around is like one of the some of the layered stamps that I had put together, but I didn't get to use it on today's page, so I'll go ahead and save that for another one. Then I just want to identify this as the verse that I'm focusing on. So I'm using the Chasing Rainbows Alpha stamp set with some chip black StazOn ink just to stamp down the word verse. And then I used 2 more of the labels, again with the numbers this time from the Chasing Rainbows stamp, to note a couple things about the one who meditates on the law. Psalm 1 in verse 3 goes on to say, "He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers." And then that kind of sounds like Joshua 1:8, which Joy also points us to in the devotional, where Yahweh is speaking to Joshua, and he says, "This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success." So a couple of things that I wanted to note from these 2 passages. First was the frequency. Both Joshua 1:8 and Psalm 1:2 refer to the frequency, day and night. Meditate on the scriptures. I have a feeling that might be like cultural hyperbole, where it is intending to mean all the time. And then the second thing that I noted was that obedience to what you've meditated on bears good fruit. So in Joshua's case, he would have good success with what God had tasked him, in that case, entering the promised land. And then the one who meditates on God's word day and night in Psalm 1:2 bears fruit in his season. Then I moved on to the what does this teach me about God part of the entry, and I jotted my answer down on this little die cut piece that said notes. I wrote, he has revealed his ways and his heart. Wow, first of all, that's a huge deal. And then he wants to be ever present in our hearts and on our lips. So I'm going to top off my entry with one last label here and just going to note the reference Psalm 19:14, which says, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. I thought that was a great way to just kind of punctuate this spread. So that's pretty much going to do it. I did add a couple of things off camera, like a date stamp with my mega date stamp from Studio Calico. And then I thought there was one other thing I added, maybe not. But that's it. So here are a few close-ups in case you want to see like in detail how this guy turned out. If you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment below. The Word Nerd kit is linked down in the video description below. We'd love to have you join us. This is one of my favorite kits all year, and I think you'll love it too. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you soon.